revolution. But the factors that led for industrial revolution are not within 1 day or 2 days, but it is a gradual one. There were several factors that contributed for the industrial revolution. So the philosophical background for industrial revolution was sufficiently provided by the French Revolution. When we are talking about industrial revolution, it is needless to say that the French Revolution has provided its background for the industrial revolution. Otherwise, the industrial revolution, the seeds of industrial revolution does not sprout up and flourish. So the French Revolution has not only been a milestone in the history of mankind as a game changer for political ideology. See, after the French Revolution, the political ideology of the Western countries have been completely changed. There were the thoughts of freedom, of the equality, liberty, fraternity, or the three great mantras that have been emerged due to the French Revolution. And these three mantras helped humanity to prioritize the individual rights and equalization of taxes. Earlier, what were the discrimination meted out by the common people were to be abolished due to the French Revolution, and all the people should be treated on equal basis. That is how liberty, equality, and fraternity also has given the equal right for the participation in the government. So all these things have contributed for the freedom of mind, freedom of speech, freedom of participation, so that the temper for scientific innovations and interventions have been developed during this period. That is why this period is also called Renaissance period. And because of this Renaissance, the thought process of the people have greatly changed and contributed for the technological innovation and scientific innovations. And this has provided a rich background for the industrial revolution here. At the same time, the liberal ideas are indeed provided a fertile ground for the freedom of movement of people and goods from one place to another. This freedom also provided a fertile pathway for the people to move from one place to another place. So it has given a greater freedom in mobility to the people. And this transformation has then also percolated to the rest of the world through trade, commerce, and most importantly, the colonial policy of the Great Britain. During that period, the policy of the Great Britain has adopted the colonial policy, where it has established its several colonies across the world. In that way, it has carried all these thoughts of liberalism, liberty, equality, and all that. This has also been transferred to all the colonial areas. So that is how the transformation has taken place. And in the course of the modern history, it took a big leap in industrial revolution, a process that indicates a major good afternoon. This is Dr. Swarnalatha from Kakatiya University, Department of Sociology and Social Work, taking the class for the BA Sociology on behalf of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Now let us continue with the lesson. So the first industrial revolution started in Britain during 18th century, starting from 1760s till 1840s. and later it spread to United States during 1840s and rest of the world through trade and commerce, and most importantly with colonization during the middle of the 19th century. Historians call this period as the period of first industrial revolution, where the total process of production of goods and services have been mechanized. And it witnessed a huge leap forward in the history of mankind with the application of mechanical power to manufacturing, thus totally transforming the economic facet of the world. Then also, it has improved transportation that has altered the urbanization process, changing the social relations and power relations. Man and his relations with society have also been affected irreversibly. Please make a note that after industrialization, whatever the changes that have been taken place in the society, they were irreversible, completely irreversible. We cannot go back to those old days where we have to do everything manually. Now we have, for every work, we have machines, even for doing lullaby also. So, his potentials and capacities have been unleashed. These changes contributed for the emergence of new socio-economic classes and restructured power and wealth relations as well. So whatever the changes that are being taking place in the society, they don't remain there only. They also gradually percolate into other dimensions of the society or other facets of the society, such that it also changing the phases of the polity, economy, power and wealth relations as well. Thus, the momentum it gained in the technological front has helped to raise scientific temper in the society also, because it gave an impetus to the technological innovation. Those who are engaged in the research and development, they got big boost with the technological, with the industrial revolution, and they started doing more and more scientific experiments, more and more doing scientific studies. That is how a scientific temper has been raised in the society. It also a century that saw the loosening of the church or religious power over the people and a rise in revolutionary ideas and values. Because when we come to know that there is no hand of God in creating certain creation, like technological creations or production of large scale goods and services, we are now able to produce these things on a large scale with the help of machines. Now we are able to know that the God is not here. It belongs to faith system, it belongs to belief system, but not machines, but not production. So there, people started to adopt rational thinking of production of services and goods, and also adopting scientific temper. That is how the societies got into scientific temper. And they came out of the religious power or church power, because earlier days when Copernicus said Earth is the solar system is there, or it is not a geocentric but solar centric, sun centric, means he got punished. So that is how whatever the scientists used to say earlier days, they were severely punished when it is against the Bible, when it is against the religious scriptures. But now that thing has completely been changed, and people started to adopt rational thinking, scientific thinking, and they are thinking logically. For every scientific thing, there is a logic and reasoning and proof. So people started believing on science also. This renaissance has helped the societies at individual level to progress into the future with new wave of wings to thoughts. And this renaissance also led the societies to march in a rational way. Added to the agricultural revolution, we are talking about French Revolution, agricultural revolution, And also, when we are talking about industrial revolution, invariably we are also be talking about agricultural revolution and also industrial revolution. Sorry, French Revolution. So now let us look at how this has taken place. What are the reasons that contributed for this industrial revolution? Now, I start with agricultural revolution. This agricultural revolution, it has no parallels with the agricultural revolution in India. I'm speaking about agricultural revolution in Great Britain during the 17th and 18th century. This agricultural revolution during those days has contributed largely for the backdrop of the industrial revolution. Approximately from 17th century onwards and throughout the industrial revolution, it was in fact acted as a growth engine by feeding the population with enough food supplies. One of the major causes for the agricultural revolution in the Britain was the enclosure policy. This policy is a legal process in England enclosing small land holdings into larger farms by fencing and deeded or entitled to one or more owners since 13th century. This is nothing but taking away the available arable land from the commoners and giving entitlement to the landlords or feudal lords. After having entitlement over the large fields of land, they did not allow commoners onto their fields freely. To work in the fields or to grow or to farm, they need to pay some taxes, some amount as a fee, and they used to enter into those lands to grow the cultivation. In such cases, the commoners are at the losing end and the feudal lords gain more entitlements and more power over the lands. Due to this policy, this process entered the ancient system of open farming of arable lands, and rich landowners used their control of state's processes to appropriate public land for their private benefit. The enclosed land was under the control of the rich farmers, who in turn put this land for better use and adopted better farming techniques to improve production and cattle grazing. See, when the land was available to everybody, when there was no ownership on the land, of the arable land, there is no particular interest for anyone to take care of that land. But once this land has become a private property, these private landowners, rich landowners, have huge estates with enough of money to invest upon that. They started inventing new ways to minimize their costs and getting more profits on the land. That is how they adapted better farming techniques, only techniques, not technological devices, to improve production and cattle grazing. And this was the beginning of agricultural revolution that continued till the industrial revolution and after also. So agricultural revolution impacted the society in many ways. One is increased production of food grains, a direct impact. And as a result, the wealth of the countryside, big farmers was increased. And there was an increased leisure time to spend on creative works that led to more creative inventions in the agriculture and other fields of activity. This abundance provided for a fertile base for the industrial revolution to happen. Second was increase in the population. With more food to feed, the population also increased. The wealthy individuals used their wealth for the establishment of factories with a profit motive. The increase in population doubly benefited for strong uphold of the industrial revolution. Firstly, it produced workers for factories, and secondly, it created huge market for the produced goods. The third and most importantly, the enclosure process created a landless working class. They were readily available for the industrialization to happen in the years to come. Since they were landless, they used to work as laborers on the fields with day-long hours, toiling on the fields with less income to feed their families. So they were in fact jobless and living on the mercy of the landlords. Now, after the industrial revolution took place, they were ready to move to industries just because of this happening. They moved more populated centers for work in the years to come. Next factor is rise of capital. Because of the industrial agricultural revolution, there was huge wealth accumulated in the hands of the rich people, and there was the capitalism that was in the rise. And this economic system is based on the private ownership. That means means of production, and the operations are for profit. Workers earn their wages by working in the factories established by the capitalists. The first shift from mercantilism kind of economic system to laissez-faire kind of economic system has paved the way for the breeding ground for industrialization, because industrialization is nothing but capitalism. Without the capitalists, industrialization does not take place. So capitalism is the foremost fuel. It is not an engine, but a fuel to make it happen, the industrial revolution. So mercantilism is the economic theory that trade generates wealth and is stimulated by the accumulation of profitable balances, which a government should encourage by means of protectionism. Naturally, where the money is there, wealth is there, power also will center over there, and naturally, polity or government, whichever is in place, that will take care of, protect that wealth, that power of the wealth. And to put it briefly, the economic system is heavily under the control of the government or king, and the capitalists have free rein over the market, and which is called as laissez-faire economic system. The stable government in Britain contributed for the laissez-faire economic system, where the merchants or where the capitalists have a free hand of the market, and these merchants will working under the government and under the control of the government. The stable government in Britain contributed for laissez-faire economic system by passing necessary laws to protect private property. It imposed very few restrictions than other European states, and this contributed for the rise of capitalism, and rest is history. The Industrial Revolution has become possible because of the capitalism. The wealthy entrepreneurs in Britain used their wealth to build factories and for excavation of mines. Then the third factor is rise of technological revolution. The technological revolution marks the beginning of mechanization. The innovation in production, transportation, and machinery helped the Great Britain to enter into a rather revolutionary phase of industrial production, starting with cast iron, the steam engine, and many other innovations followed. And then the first technological industrial production of textile industry has been the first witness for the world to look into the industrial revolution. The cotton industry, to start with, in 1770s and 1780s, the cotton textile industry of Britain took a major step towards industrial revolution in the history of modern factory system. Tools and devices used for speedy production were in fact the products of the weavers, spinners, and or artisans, but not scientific innovations. The rising demand for more cotton goods because of the rising population, because of the colonization of the British, the demand for cotton goods has been has been ever increasing. So the rising demand for more cotton goods necessitated for more technological innovations. With the invention of steam engine, the cotton industry got a big push, leading to huge expansion of factory system. There was internal migration of laborers and their families from villages to new towns where the factories were located. And the biggest push here for industrialization in technological terms is the steam engine. Now let us look how steam engine has been coming to place. There is a popular saying that steam is an Englishman. Because had it not been steam engine, the industrialization could not have been taken place in such a rapid pace. The atmospheric pump, an earlier version of steam engine, was invented by Thomas Newcomen in 1712 to empty water from the coal mines when the mining was taking place during that period. Which mining? Coal mining. What is this coal is used for? It is used for the transportation. So James Watt, Scottish engineer, in 1760, when he was asked to repair this atmospheric pump, he added a condenser and one steam pump in that atmospheric pump, and the result was steam engine. In 1782, he further developed this steam engine with a rotary engine, which can be used not only to empty the water from coal mines, but also can be applied to spinning and weaving cotton. Here, the revolutionary change took place. By 1850, about 87% of power for cotton industry was coming from steam. Since it was run by coal, there was greater flexibility in the choice of location. It revolutionized the production of cotton goods in a way that the production shifted from the artisan's house to factory. Earlier, what happened in the cotton industry, all the production was taking place in the artisan's house only. There is no need for people to go to factory. Earlier, there was no such concept as a factory, and people used to go there and work. But after this, steam engine has been invented and has been added to the production side of the spinning and weaving cotton. Then people started knowing that it cannot be limited to the house or home, because it requires large space and requires huge machinery, requires a lot of investment. So that is how the production now shifted to the factory. So it has revolutionized the production system from the artisan's house to factory. And gradually, the factory system spread to other industries as well. Once this has been successfully running, whoever watching this, they started inventing this mechanism and they started adding to their kind of a particular industry, and they also get succeeded in adding this steam engine to their production processes. And that is how this industrialization has been spread to all other industries as well. The demand for more coal for the production of the steel also increased with the success of the steam engine. See, naturally, it is like a, what do we say? Reflexivity. If you touch one place, it keep on moving to shifting the energy to other place, from there to other, from there to other. Like that, when this production started consuming steam engine, steam, and to produce steam, they require coal. So to produce coal, they require more mines. In that also, they need automation. They need technological innovations for the large scale production. So that is where the demand for more coal for the production of the steam also increased with the success of the steam engine. New processes started emerging to meet the demand of coal. In doing so, it helped the development of iron industry. And later on, we witnessed transportation revolution also at the same time. The beginning of industrial revolution needed smooth and quick transport of finished goods to various places. So also, movement of workers from villages to newly formed towns around the factories. So the four ways of transportation used during this period were roadways, riverways, invention of water canals, and also railroads, new invention. The transportation revolution started from the middle of the 17th century, that is 1750 onwards, when the private and public funds were invested for the construction of new roads and bridges and waterways in canals. The major industrial centers in the north, the Midlands, London, and the Atlantic were linked by roads, rivers, and canals, as there were no custom barriers on the internal trade. The domestic trade flourished due to these favorable conditions of the transportation. And also abundant rivers and helped for the water transportation, and with the steam engines, steamboats were invented, and they transformed the waterways into a cheaper and efficient transportation. In places where there were no rivers and canals, the roadways come in handy in transportation. Later on, for many historians, the invention of railroads was the single most major factor in promoting our economic development and for all the success of the Industrial Revolution in Europe. The invention of steam engine was the major contributing factor for all this development. However, it requires huge capital requirements. So the huge capital demands helped for the emergence of middle class investors also, who found a way through joint stock companies. The joint stock companies were started during those days to accommodate, to absorb the demand for huge capital, and to amass that huge capital, they started taking investments from the middle class investors also. They started investing through joint stock companies, which ensures a kind of safety investment protection. The development of railroads has a rippling effect on the economy, as raw materials and finished goods were transferred with ease and less cost. The large scale of production derived economies of scale, and people are able to get quality of goods at cheaper rates. And reduction in prices created larger markets and increase in demand, and thus resulted in more number of factories, machinery, and more investments, thus forming a chain of production and development of economy. Thus, there was a continuous and rapid economic growth with a self-sustaining character came into force with this great industrial revolution. All the factories have produced or has been a self-sustaining chain came into place, and this character helped the factories and industries to grow, and they contributed for the great industrial revolution. Next comes another factor is colonial imperialism. The policy or practice of acquiring full or partial political control over another country, occupying it with settlers and exploiting it economically, is called imperialism. So this practice has been at large during that period by the Great Britain, French, and other countries. So the 18th century wars and conquests of Britain resulted in the expansion of Britain's colonialism, rivaling the Dutch Republic and France around the world, helped greatly for the Industrial Revolution to take deep roots in the economy, because they started selling their industrial goods in their colonial countries, and that is how they created the demand from those colonial places, and that is how they started improving their industrial production, and that is how the Industrial Revolution has been boosted by the colonial imperialistic practices of the Great Britain. Next comes the role of religion. Here, it is very interesting to see that earlier days religion itself is the controlling factor for the advancement of scientific temper. Once the French Revolution took place and people started adopting to newer circumstances and newer scientific tempers, then the religion also has its own place in contributing for the industrial revolution. Let us see how it happened. Industrialization requires a new set of values like discipline and idea of working hard in a timed format among the first generation working class. These values used to be reinforced by the new evangelical churches. Particularly, Methodism has laid emphasis on the disciplined path. Laziness, wasteful habits were considered sinful. It glorified the hardship in this life as a stepping stone for a joyous life of next, thus making the individual acceptance for his hardships, whatever the hardships he might be undergoing by working in the industries, they completely welcomed it through because of the belief in the religion, belief in the religious preachings, which says hardship is necessary to be blissful in the next life. These evangelical values like hard work, discipline, and thrift strengthened the efforts of the factory owners. Not only they strengthened the belief system of the workers, but also strengthened the owners in disciplining the workers towards factory system of regular working hours and hardships as a natural way of life. They started accepting these hardships as natural way of life. We cannot overcome that. It is part of their life. And nonetheless, this attitude made possible the Great Britain's unparalleled growth during that period. The acceptance of the people for the hardship has given the impetus to the Great Britain growth. And now look at the features of the Industrial Revolution. It gave rise to capitalism, rapid spread of factory system from cotton spinning mills to other sectors of goods and production, shift from conventional, manual, and animal powered labor to the rise of steam power, and shift from manual labor intensive production to machine intensive, capital intensive system of production, mobility of people, that is people living in villages with agriculture as their main occupation, started migrating to towns and cities to work in factories. And this has shifted the social structure entirely. And mass production of goods increased efficiency, reduced average costs, enabled more to be produced. Huge capital investments from public through joint stock companies also happened during this period. Emergence of new working class people and middle class people, and change in working conditions with strict working hours, laborious working conditions, and defined wages and labor rules. Rapid industrialization had a cost in terms of pollution and poor working conditions for labor. So let us look at what are the effects of industrial revolution. Without this, this chapter cannot be completed. So the society is intertwined and interdependent, as we all know but one change in a system forces other changes among inter and intra systems of the society. Industrial revolution is not a single revolution, but a chain of revolutions that took place in the society. Thus, it was not only a change in production, but economy also reflected. The changes that emerged during this period are going to change the face of the world and international relations. Firstly, there was an ideological shift. This industrial revolution has brought in ideological shift. That is, the shift from conservative economic system to laissez-faire capitalistic system is one of the more ideological shift resulted in causing industrial revolution. This individual-centric ideology caused industrial revolution termed as classical liberalism by historians. Also, the unbridled capitalists who were also factory and mine owners exercised their power to exploit workers. So the workers were having difficult working conditions. Women and children were working in factories with no equal rights and equal wages. They were given very less pay when in comparison with male workers. There was no protection from the government. So this kind of exploitative environment in factors during early stages of industrialization created a favorable condition for the emergence of socialist ideas. Earlier, these socialist ideas were not as popular as it was with after industrial revolution. The most famous ideologies like Marxism and utopian socialism take roots in the society during this period. Karl Marx argued against the exploitation of working class and for a class less equitable society in his famous works, The Communist Manifesto and Thus Capital. And utopian socialism, another great ideology of this period, can be attributed to Robert Owen, a factory owner in New Lanark, Scotland. The workers in his factory were provided with basic education, healthcare, and pay, decent wages, which was a great reformatory action during those days. This practice not only improved the productivity of the workers, but also yielded profits to Owen. He is the proponent and practitioner of the utopian socialism in the Western society. And the utopian socialist ideology thus emerged with the ideology of welfare of the labor and sharing of wealth with them. And with the emergence of these ideologies, these ideas like socialism and laissez-faire capitalism started influencing the economic activities in the centuries to come. The 20th century saw the convergence of these two polarized ideologies to emerge a mixed economy based on the welfare state model and modern liberalistic ideology. This is the major ideological shift that happened during the Industrial Revolution. Urbanization. The technological change affected the demography, and urbanization is the process of mass movement of people from rural settings to urban areas, thereby causing a huge expansion of urban centers, changing physical, social, cultural, economic, and political structures. A shift from small farmers and their families to the urban centers due to the enclosure movement also happened. So this is it was discussed earlier also, enclosure movement. And with the emergence of Industrial Revolution, these farmers moved to the towns. And this caused the growth of new industrial cities and adjacent towns, causing large-scale urbanization ever during that period. Also, huge population boom supported by plentiful supply of food due to agricultural revolution in the initial years of Industrial Revolution alongside mass migration resulted in the increase of availability of workforce for the industries to catch up. And emergence of new social class. Mass migration of landless farmers and their families in search of work in factories created a concentration of population in and around the factories. The primary relations that exist in traditional rural life were replaced by the impersonal coexistence, the major characteristics of an industrial society. A new kind of working class emerged with factory system who works as laborers for a wage. In traditional economy, they were the masters of their skill and production, but not now. And also there was an usurping new middle class people who were educated and were wealthy and quick in grabbing the benefits of industrialization. The creation of these wealthy industrial middle class and huge industrial working class sections has transformed the emerging industrial societies into a different world of social relations. These changes resulted in the advent of new socio-economic classes and the respective changes in power and money relations, innovations and inventions. The modern day lifestyles would not have been possible without the advent of industrial revolution. Innovations and inventions in production mechanism geared up the economic growth and further growth of industrialization. Results of cost increase in productivity necessitated for more and more inventions in technology, the emergence of wealthy middle class with their investments pouring in, and the rise of the capitalism and their wealth helped further research and development in the technological front that helped create several inventions. Trade unionism. Another important feature, result of industrial revolution is trade unionism. The organizations formed by workers from related fields of industry and work for the common interests of its members are called as trade unionism. And during the initial stage of industrialization, the government gave freedom to the capitalists who owned these factories. There were no laws protecting the interests of the workers. The workers get wages as fixed by the management, and each machine hour was very costly. To cover the cost, the machine should run constantly, and to run that, workers were used to work in shifts and their work was constantly monitored. This required a massive adjustment in the lives of the early factory laborers. Laborious work, low wages, job insecurity, poor working conditions, living on the mercy of the management are some of the major problems that led to the faced by the workers in the early stages of industrialization. And this led to the trade unionism, and it sprang and grew because of this precarious working conditions. Workers formed unions to protect their interests, and they strongly put forth by the trade unions and improving the life of the workers. They started protesting against exploitation, asking for reasonable working hours, rates of pay, workplace safety, and so on and so forth. And this activism has become a stepping stone for the trade unionism and also for several welfare measures in the coming generations. And another important feature is feminist movement. The advocacy of women's rights on the ground of equality of the sexes is called feminism. In the context of industrial revolution, it is pertinent to discuss its effect on women's rights. The industrial revolution impacted profoundly the lives of women and their economic and social status in the society. They were paid much less. The women in newly established industrial societies were paid much less than or almost half of the wage of men. The socialist ideologies that were rooting that time helped women to take a cue to fight for equal rights and equal pay. This, in due course, helped women to organize and protest for right to vote. Till the emergence of industrial societies in 1900s, the right to vote for women was denied. Because of this trade unionism efforts and early feminist movements that helped or made governments root to make policies and acts for the protection and welfare of the female workers. And nature of production, as we already discussed about it, the nature of production shifted from artisans' home to factory, and the entire production process has been mechanized and so on forth. And disintegration of joint family. This is also another bad circumstances of the industrial revolution. We cannot judge that at this in the modern period, given the circumstances. But in earlier days, when the joint system was strong enough and having strong hold on its family members, there was a disintegration in the joint family system because of the migration of the family members to the urban centers and all that. And standard of living, because of this industrial revolution, urbanization and all that, the standard of living also has been risen. And for the first time, according to Robert E. Lucas Jr., for the first time in history, the living standards of the masses of ordinary people have begun to undergo sustained growth. Nothing remotely like this economic behavior is mentioned by the classical economists, even as a theoretical possibility. So industrial revolution has made it possible to have the good living standards for the masses of ordinary people. However, during initial industrialization, the conditions of workers were very pathetic, but later on, due to the trade unionism and several other initiatives by various organizations, that the position was completely changed and several welfare measures were in place. And education. Industrialization also requires skilled technical persons to operate machinery and to manage production. And also, it also helped to print books, scientific principles, scientific ideas were printed largely through printing press. So that is how the industrialization helped necessitated promoting education among commoners, and it is the only way to impart skills, because it requires huge human force, and that human force also requires skills and knowledge. So that is how education is needed to educate these people to acquire skills and to work in the factories. Further, the invention of paper printing machine and steam power helped expansion of publishing and directly contributed for the expansion of educational opportunities. And modernization. This is the most important aspect of the Industrial Revolution. Modernization in sociology is the transformation of a society from a traditional rural agrarian society to a secular urban industrial society. So it is a comprehensive transformation due to industrialization that societies become modern, and the industrialization and urbanization kick-started the process of modernization, due to which there were several changes took place in social, cultural, economic, and political sphere. It is a continuous and open-ended process. C. Welsh views it as a process which involves rational utilization of resources which seek to establish a modern society. He identifies it as any social culture that allows individuals to develop a critical view of man in his relation to nature and society, which enables him to see life as involving different kinds of choices, personal, social, or structural and moral. So with this, I conclude with the Industrial Revolution. Thank you.